Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a really cool review for you from the brand Nodus. A little bit about them. They were founded back in 2016 out of Long Beach here in LA County in the good old state of California in the good old country of the US of A. Now, a little bit about them. Nodus is Latin for node, or the intersection of two paths where quality meets affordability, heritage meets modernity, and design meets functionality. They're essentially a modern microbrand startup offering high quality, high value wristwatches. And in terms of type of watch, this is a great watch that kind of covers everything within that everyday outdoor adventure watch space. Now, some key common characteristics in design when you're looking for something that can be very capable and also very versatile, you're really just going to want that sporty, legible, tough combination, of course, and with capabilities, right? You want something that's also capable to go out there and be versatile in terms of wearing it for hard sports. Now, this is the Sector Sport Frost, and this is from their restock this year for 2023. I'm recording this during the summer of 2023. These are all, of course, assembled and regulated in the US. They go for $475 direct, and they are a lot of fun. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so the numbers on this one: 37 millimeter diameter, 12.5 millimeters thick, which I think it actually wears really well thanks to that nice slim mid case. Of course, on the crown side, it's going to look thinner, but even on the kind of show side, it still looks incredibly thin, and a lot again has to do with design choices by having that case back kind of separated, having the bezel separated, and then having the mid case, and then of course having these undercuts as well as bevels on top. So they're doing a lot to really make sure that the visual weight is just really well parsed out, which I can appreciate. And then when you get to the full size, hey, 47 millimeters lug to lug isn't bad, and is definitely very, very wearable. Now, this is all going to be 316L stainless steel, and it is in a very nice satin brushed finish with some great high polished accents. Now, getting into the bezel there, it is a fixed bezel, and it does have a nice radial brushing, which does suit the watch really well. And I like the way that it kind of holds the light, and it keeps the watch feeling just a little bit round. There are a lot of hard edges there in terms of some of the angles, so it's nice that it balances out kind of the roundness with the straight lines, and you can see that kind of carried over within the designs of the indices on the dial. The crown is screw down, as you can see, also nicely signed and also nicely knurled. And it's a very good size to actuate when you are going to be doing that little bit of hand winding if you don't want to just shake it up, let's say if you haven't worn it in a while. Now, although you can't see it behind this solid case back with some nice, pretty clean etching there, you have your Seiko Instruments NH38, which is a no date movement, which means when I pull the crown out here, nice pop out, you can see I can hack, which is fantastic. And also you're going to see when I pushed it back in, it just got going again. Now, that is not the case for every NH38 I've ever used, so I always have to point out when it has really good action. Sometimes it can be a bit mushy in terms of the crown action, so very nice. And it's what you expect from a brand like Nodus, especially considering they do the assembly here, they do in-house regulation here as well. So that movement, apart from being, just a Seiko movement, some details: 41-hour power reserve, and it's beating at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate. It is regulated into 4 positions to plus or minus 10 seconds per day. Now, 10 plus or minus 10 seconds per day, again, that's the furthest tolerance that they're regulated to. So chances are you'll get one that runs better. So that's something to also keep in mind. Now, when you get to this dial, it is really, really handsome. It has this great stepped sector dial style, and it has the applied indices. You actually also are getting some high contrast with these gunmetal hands and surrounds. And then, of course, you're getting a healthy dose of Lume, and it's going to be Swiss Superluminova BGW9 grade A Lume. So strong Lume from that perspective. And with that screw down crown and the screw down case back, you're going to be getting 100 meters of water resistance. And that is going to be a confidence inspiring 100 meters because you know your crown is going to be intact because it's screwed down. Of course, if you left it unscrewed, then you would be screwed because you would definitely not have the same level of water resistance. So pun intended there. Now getting into the lugs, very manageable lug width here at 20 millimeters. It's pretty much the sweet spot. If you own straps, chances are most of them are 20 millimeter straps. So you will have an absolute ball trying this one, especially within this colorway that's super versatile with that silver dial. But you do have also, you can see drilled lugs, and you can also see that even the spring bars on the provided bracelet are actually quick release. So you can swap this on and off very, very quickly. Very nice H-link, all solid in terms of the end links and the links there. Nicely brushed for a full brush look. And then also you're going to be getting screw-in construction, which is what most people prefer. And then, of course, one of the highlights of this particular watch and the brand in general right now is this Nodus proprietary clasp that has 5 positions or about 10 millimeters of toolless micro adjust. I think it's pretty ingenious what they did here. It doesn't raise costs too much because if you look, these are actually still kind of bent and stamped pieces, but they all come together in a way that just looks and feels very solid. You even still get a beautiful bevel there, and you can see the buttons themselves are actually just kind of curved to seem like they are like they're milled, but they're not. So it's not going to be super heavy or anything like that. And everything, just looks quite nice. You can see on the underside, there's a little button there. And then, of course, if I didn't mention yet, this is a loaner. So you will see a couple of stickers here and there from Nodus. And you guys can notice that clasp. And essentially, you can't pull it out, but you can press the button. And then you can pull it out. Let me go ahead and do that. There you go. So now this is extended fully. It's, unfortunately, the clasp isn't long enough to kind of cover the full extension. What I would like, my feedback would be, is if you just made the clasp as long as the folding section, because at the end of the day, that's still there. If you made it that long, then essentially when you had it fully extended, you would still have something like this, which is, way better in terms of the look. This is a little bit unsightly, but if you are going to use that, let's say, as an extension, on a really hot day, you're probably not going to care the way that that looks, but it's just, for me, a bit of an improvement, especially since you already do have to have this folding section this long for you to be able to open it nice and wide to get over your hand. So, and one thing also to note is that you still have to press the button back to push it back in. So this isn't going to be, like one-way ratcheting or anything like that. It pretty much has to have the button engaged to go either direction, which a lot of people do prefer, so you're not accidentally clicking this thing on. While others may prefer to be able to kind of push it and ratchet it in when it's already on the wrist versus kind of finding which click is their click and then getting it dialed in. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this wears really beautifully. Of course, if I get my wrist a little bit too close to the camera, you're gonna get a bit of perspective distortion. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten the frame up so that you guys can still get a detailed look at how this will appear on wrist, but just at a bit of a truer aspect ratio. And you can see it is really, really nicely centered. This is just such a complete watch, and there was definitely a time in my kind of collecting career here where I just really loved everything when it comes to just those complete kind of one watch type of watches. They can just do it all. Screw down crown, super versatile. I mean, is there any situation where this wouldn't feel right at home? Maybe if I was like in a tuxedo or something, but other than, very formal dress, I think really this could just, be your one watch collection very, very easily. And kudos to Nodus for, building things to this spec. And again, what a real beauty of the Sector series is that, yes, there are some familiar elements here, whether it be the 3, 6, and 9, or, certain angles and folds and facets within the lugs, or the H-link bracelet there in terms of the flow. But it doesn't look like anything directly. It's not like they took one, a look at one other watch and kind of recreated. They really did their due diligence and created a platform from the ground up and various variations of it, so that you can have something that very clearly has its own unique personality, and it's a good personality, right? Sometimes micro brands can just try to come up with things that are very unique, and unfortunately there's a reason why certain elements are so common. It's because a lot of things work and look good, and they don't stray too far away from things that work, which I can really appreciate. It does take a lot of extra effort to make sure that you are still delivering something that doesn't feel derivative when you do have all those kind of classic elements colliding onto one platform. But I have to say that Nodus in general, but specifically the Sector series and this sport model really personifies that just overall cohesive, fully loaded kind of vibe, which I can appreciate, especially at under $500, $475. I know some of you are gonna be like, $475, why doesn't it have a Miyota 9000 series movement or something like that? I will say that of course they have tiers, and this is meant to be an entry level type of watch. And of course, costs increase annually, and what used to be quite affordable, whether it be Rolex or Seiko or Grand Seiko or Omega, everything changes kind of year to year. I still find this to be quite a value, though, considering the fact that this isn't just some factory watch that is a direct homage to something else that is made, in huge batches with really no overhead. Here, these are being hand assembled here in the States. They're being regulated here in the States. They're being designed here in the States from a company that's run out of California, which is not the cheapest place to do business, in case you didn't know. So with all that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Yes, and as you would expect, from a leading micro brand, they really do apply the Lume well. And that's just kind of a precursor to all the other fine details that you might not be able to really judge by just watching something in a YouTube video. But one thing I always do like to work in is going to be that low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or maybe just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects. But here you're just going to see absolutely flawless and impeccable execution, although the brushing isn't quite luxury level in terms of very fine hairline brushing. For a tool watch, it is very clean and very well done. So really nice, and what you would expect, of course, from this brand that is really well respected within the space in terms of fit and finish and original design, as well as things that really matter, like customer service and customer experience. They do have a lot of different groups and kind of inner circles that you can become a part of once you do start purchasing. So it is definitely a very cool and a great modern, micro brand that really sets the bar for folks that are, coming. Everybody, I would say any brand that comes after really has a great blueprint. Now, closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, really, really nice proportions, very comfortable, balanced wear. You know, it's small, yes, at 38 millimeters, but it's not by any means undersized, which is great. It has a ton of wrist presence and it's quite balanced, so it still has a bit of heft and a solid feel to it, so it doesn't feel cheap or anything like that. In terms of model variants, definitely check the links for options and availability. Within this current batch, it also contains the marigold yellow dial option as well as a glacier blue dial. This is the frost dial, which is this, you know, pale silvery kind of tone. I wouldn't call it quite an opaline, where it's going to be rendering visually white. This, for me, looks visually a bit more silver. It has a little bit of sheen to it, which a lot of people I think will enjoy, especially with the play in terms of those gunmetal surrounds and the choices with the handset. We're going to get a nice level of contrast. Now, in terms of comparable models, you know, you could compare this to, let's say, dedicated field watches or pilot's watches, but this is going to be more versatile in comparison because, hey, this is the sport quote unquote model, right? And even within Nodus themselves, they do a dedicated kind of field style and aviation style and dive style watches within this sector platform. But this is really meant to be that kind of uber versatile variation, and it does that really well. So you kind of have to give them props for that. So that, yes, it does have the capabilities to kind of fit in those places. Not quite as specialized, so it's also going to be a little bit boring to some, I think, right? But I think there's enough visual design, little details there to enjoy without it just being like overly, bland, right? I think it's far from that. But of course, if you did want something that felt a little bit more niche or specialized, you could also look within the sector line and find, the more field specific orientation or aviation or diving. So for me, guys, the bottom line, this just makes an awesome candidate for a one watch type of piece. The Sector Sport does it all and does it well. And it does it for, under $500 while offering a signature visual design language that just feels distinctly specific to the brand versus the average homage with a slight twist type of offering that currently flood the affordable go anywhere, do anything type of market. So if you guys are big into design, if you're big into kind of brand experience, I would say that you will find a lot of value within this piece. And I think just even at a spec level, it's quite strong in terms of its offerings. But then when you actually take into account the design, the branding behind it, the evolution of such a great and fun young brand, I think there's a lot to love. So with that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.